morning everybody, welcome to Immortal Gaming. This is me again, Marvin, and we're now here for another video for Ragnarok M Classic, and this time we're going to be talking about the job classes. So this will be the official job class guide of the channel. Let's go ahead because we have a ton of job classes to discuss. Okay, let's first talk about the Ranger. So for the Ranger, this one is gonna be probably the most popular, early to mid game job classes. So the good thing about this game is that you can freely change your job anytime you want as long as you have the Zenny, and you can freely build them up again and change back to the usual job and change to different jobs that you have already unlocked through Ymir's notebook. So the good thing about the Ranger is that if you start your progress as a Ranger, everything else will be very easy at early to mid game. Now, the first thing is that it is ranged, very good for grinding. Apart from very good on grinding, it's really powerful in early game. So being a single target, burst damage or continuous burst damage, because it's using an auto attack build that has a lot of additional, overlapping damage with it because of the Falcon. It's gonna be very powerful also on PvE. So it's easy to build on PvE, very great on killing MVPs early on, and top tier in instances. So instances are really the bread and butter of this game in terms of progression. So having a character that is really great on instance is gonna help you build up your character. For PvP, its role on PvP in early game and even on late game is gonna be the Emp Destroyer or the Imperium Destroyer, and for War of Crystals, that's gonna be the MVP Killer. So it's also good that it is not that Acer dependent. Really good that it is not Acer dependent. Now, let's look at the cons of this character. On late game, it's gonna be mid tier. Very hard to use on PvP on late game because a lot of people already have or already will build their character on high crit resist. So it's not that easy. In terms of another build, which is Trapper, it's not that, popular, but it is a better support DPS on PvP. Now, the last part is it has no Zenny farming skill. So apart from being ranged, that is the only good thing about the Ranger or the Sniper of being in grinding. Okay? Let's now go to the Minstrel and the Wanderer. This is the Bard, job tree and the third job. So it has a very, very flexible skill set. It can deal DPS, it can also support, it can also buff and revive. So all of the things that you would want in a party, except for tanking at least. Okay, so it's really good, very flexible. Another good thing about this is that the Mr. Gold Rich has bonus Zenny for everybody. That is a must. In my opinion, it is a must on party grinding. Okay, party buffs also really good. Also, increases further your party's capabilities in team dungeons or also on mid game or even on late game instances. It's also very good to add to your Thanatos team because the ensemble skills of both Minstrel and Wanderer can make or break your Thanatos party games. Okay, in terms of cons, the set gears for the Minstrel and Wanderer are kind of on the higher side, very expensive. So it's also difficult to use on, solo instances. Even though it's very flexible, its DPS is not that impressive. So it's kind of hard to use on solo instances. It's also less effective support in terms of support skills if you'll be comparing the similar support skills that it has to the Priest or the Archbishop. The Archbishop are all superior to the support skills of Minstrel and a Wanderer. Let's now go to the Knight, or in the third job, it's gonna be Rune Knight, okay? So, the pros. OP damage on late game. So good on late game because the skills of the Rune Knight utilizes both physical attack and magic attack. So the handbook deposits are gonna help you by a ton, by a mile. Okay, apart from that, it has fast movement speed. It's not that much Aesir dependent. When I say Aesir, that's the Aesir monument wherein you have to farm. You have to grind the medals on it. And grinding medals on it is not that easy, and it has a cap somehow. Okay, so it can also be a secondary tank just in case you don't have a tank in your team or in your party. And I can assure you this, it's very great on late game. Okay, so let's now go to the cons. Big build switch happens from a Knight, Lord Knight to a Rune Knight. Since now, as a Rune Knight, you will now also be focusing on magical attack, not only on ignore physical defense and physical attack, okay? So it's also a little bit more expensive to build on the late game because aside from the need to, focus on physical attack and magical attack, of course, you have to also focus on defensive stats because you're on mid-range and most of the time on melee range. Now let's talk about the Paladin, and for the third job, it's gonna be Royal Guard. So this one is really the most underrated job class in my opinion. This is the best tank in the game. It's a must-have for team instances because mostly on early to mid game, you would need to survive. And having a tank or having a support to the DPS by devotion is really gonna help you by a mile in completing instances, particularly the harder ones. It's a must-have support to DPS in terms of devotion and earth drive, all of those skills in guild versus guild. Also, that's the reason why it's very terrifying to go up against a party with a well-built Royal Guard, because it can support the DPS, it can prevent the DPS from dying on their side, and it can also deal DPS itself. So it's really hard, alright? But it has cons, okay, of course. It's not that F2P friendly considering that you need a lot of defensive stats and also a lot of HP to make it work. It's not that good DPS on solo instances, particularly on the early stages of PvE. It can also be countered by Genetic and Mechanic by destroying the gears, Sorcerer by stripping buffs, and Stalker by stripping up the gears. Let's now go to the Warlock. Okay, the Warlock. It's very great. This has been renowned to be one of the best AoE damage dealer for early to mid game. But the changes on the grinding system of this game really took a toll on the Warlock. So on early game, even on late game, it's still very great on all instances, particularly those instances that has a lot of mobs like, Endless Tower, Thanatos, Normal Rift, Dungeons, all of those stages. Now it has also OP damage on War of Imperium. The Tetra Vortex is gonna one-hit you most of the time, and if you don't have any protection against fire damage, it's just the Meteor Storm is just gonna melt you, particularly for a Warlock that has high ignore magic defense built. So also in War of Crystals, some of the reasons why your side couldn't clash on the other side is because of the Warlock. So it's a great one-hitter on 6 versus 6, and it's a great late game class. But the cons, okay, let's talk about the cons. I've told you guys it's very hard. It's very hard on early to mid game because it does not have very powerful single target skills apart from bolts. So you have to rely on auto attack, and having an auto attack build requires a ton of gears, a ton of stats. So it's kind of not F2P friendly. And also, if you want to transition to a very good AoE damaging Warlock, it's kind of Aesir dependent. Now, apart from that, it's also easily countered by sorcerers. So one cast of Land Protector and the Warlocks are gonna have a hard time on dropping AoE skills, but they can still kill you using their Tetra Vortex. And because it doesn't have a very good single target skill and still has to resort to auto attack, it needs a party on grinding. And probably you will be changing class or switching class whenever you are grinding if you are a Warlock main. Now let's talk about the Sorcerer or the Sage as the second job. So this one is the more popular mage class in this game. So it's very great. It has a very great single target DPS. It's easy to build. It's an auto attacker. And in terms of set gears, it's really easy to build set gears for a sorcerer on late game. I've experienced that on CBT. In just 1 to 2 days, my sorcerer is already well built in terms of the set gears. It's also not that Acer dependent, although the Acer is gonna help you in increasing your damage, but it's not entirely Acer dependent, not as dependent as the Warlock. It has no counter as of the moment. It has no counter on PvP because it automatically changes, or it has a chance to change your armor to water element. So its lightning bolts are gonna kill you faster. And aside from that, it counters a lot of AoE users or AoE job classes, both in PvE, because MVPs also use AoE skills, and PvP area. One of the big misconception of being a sorcerer in this game is that it cannot do a lot of things if you are not a pay-to-win player. But that is not the truth. Actually, the sorcerer is one of the more F2P friendly job classes out there because you just need your skills on PvP to become a very great utility for your guild. It doesn't mean that you are an F2P, you cannot be a sorcerer. Being a sorcerer allows your guild to have a good formation and also prevents a lot of things. It can disable, it can buff strip, it can have a lot of support to DPS by changing the armor of the enemy simply to water. Now, it's very great at inflicting flinch in PvP because of the bolt, and casting a bolt per attack is gonna, almost disable your enemy. So it's really good also on 6 versus 6. Now, in terms of the cost, if you're looking forward for a very high damaging sorcerer, it will be more on the expensive side or pay to win side. It's not easy to use this character on early to mid game, and if you want to focus on sorcerer as your main, you will need set gears for it. Now let's go to the Guillotine Cross or the Assassin as the second job. The pros, okay, both dagger and katars are viable, okay, in this version of Ragnarok. But the good thing here is that ROMC finally sets apart from the previous Ragnaroks that we have played, making the Katar build better in this game. So it's gonna be easier versus other games. Apart from that, it's very good on late game. It also has fast movement speed and a good mage killer and backstabber on PvP team clashes. Since you're gonna be focusing mostly on crit, it's also a great Imperium destroyer in guild versus guild. The cons, very hard to use as F2P in early to mid game. It's easily countered by sorcerers because the poison cloud is AoE, and that's one of the very powerful skills of a Guillotine Cross. So it's easily countered by sorcerers. So if you want to build a very powerful Guillotine Cross, applying a hybrid Flea plus DPS build is gonna be very expensive. Now let's go to the Shadow Chaser or a Stalker at the second job. Okay, the Shadow Chaser probably is the second, the second job class that will be very popular at release. because in terms of pros, it's very great on grinding, it's ranged, and to add to it, it also has Zenny farming skills. So it's a combination of a Whitesmith plus a sniper. So range plus Zenny farming skills, the best one here. It's also a great single target DPS because of the triangle shot, really gets powerful on mid game. It also has a fast movement speed, so you can also a very good mage killer on PvP, and also a backstabber on PvP team clashes. It also has a very good AoE skill. Now, very good utility and damage on PvP team clashes, and it counters a lot of jobs because of its strip capability. So it has good damage, very fast, very sneaky, and at the same time, it also disables on PvP. Now, cons. In cons, it's kind of hard to use early game, only early game, and the AoE skills can counteract with Sorcerer's Land Pro. So in terms of instances, PvE, if you have a Sorcerer in your party, so you have to still decide whether your Sorcerer is gonna be using the land protection or not. Otherwise, you're gonna be relying only on your single target skills. Now, let's go to the Archbishop, or a priest on the second job. So this one is the superior job class above all. It's very F2P friendly. It's a must-have support on all instances, a must-have support on War of Imperium, Guild versus Guild, War of Crystal, and 6 versus 6. It's the best support in the game. You know, technically, the Minstrel and Wanderer cannot replace the Archbishop. I would still choose an Archbishop over a Minstrel or a Wanderer. The good thing about this game is ROMC made it okay for grinding already because they strengthened the Holy Light. Now, it's the best support in-game, very easy to build. It's just magical attack, defensive stats, and just movement speed. And you will be needed by players most of the time. So, in terms of progression, it's gonna be easier for you as an F2P than most job classes. Now, in terms of the cons here, it's kind of hard to use on solo instances. That's why one of the cons here is if you are, naturally inclined to DPS builds, the Archbishop here does not have a very good DPS build. It's less popular in early to mid game because, some of the players will be just using mercenaries instead. But on, late game wherein you have to tackle a higher difficulty of lore on Endless Tower or Thanatos or other PvP instances or content, then that's the time that more and more people will be inclined to using an Archbishop. So I would say it also takes a while for you to learn to be a good support, and that's why it puts pressure on the Archbishop users if they will be supporting as good as the party needs them to be. So the Shura, it's very good on single target damage, particularly on grinding. Very good tank for PvE. Early to mid game PvE, it's the best tank in my opinion. It's also great at early to mid game on solo instances, on killing MVPs, really useful on team instances wherein you need to deal a huge DPS burst on MVPs. Now, in terms of cons, it's highly Acer dependent, and biggest damage dealing burst of Shura can easily be countered by Safety Wall. Not F2P friendly because you need a ton of stats, and apart from that, it has no Zenny farming skill. So let's go to the mechanic. So Whitesmith as the transcendent job and Blacksmith as its second job. So it's very great late game, okay? Late game, very great. A ton of opportunities gets open to you once you become a mechanic, but it's kind of very hard for you as a Whitesmith and a Blacksmith. So it's the best grinding class. The mechanic is ranged, and at the same time, you have a lot of Zenny farming passives. So it also helps a lot of DPS in party or team instances. Really takes your damage to a higher level because it's party buffs. So it's really good. Now, very great on supporting DPS on guild versus guild and War of Crystals. Now, let's talk about the cons. It's not F2P friendly if you want to focus a ton on DPS. It needs a ton of expensive gears and cards. It's harder to use it as a Blacksmith and a Whitesmith because those two are melee ranged, and it needs specific gacha gears for it to be independently built as a very good DPS. And apart from that, it is Aesir dependent. Last but not the least, let's talk about Genetic or the Alchemist as its second job. It's really superb on grinding because it's also long ranged, and it also carries the same Zenny farming passives of the mechanic. But you have to take note of the skills that you will be using on grinding because sometimes can be a double-edged sword. It has high burst DPS, but most of them are AoE, so you have to take note if you're gonna bring your party, if your party is gonna bring you to grind wherein there are MVPs that spawn. You have to take note of that. It deals a great burst DPS. It can utilize both physical attack and magical attack stats. So just like the Rune Knight, it is great on late game. Amazing on both solo and team instances, and it's also a must-have utility role on PvP, both in destroying gears and on protecting your party members' gears. It also gains higher movement speed and very flexible builds on PvE and PvP. I mean, you can use you can use acid demonstration or fire expansion build. You can also use vanilla mirth or dieter build. You can also, use your AoE skills just to destroy your enemies' gears. So it's really a must-have on team or guild clashes. Now, in terms of cons, mostly it is locked on fire damage. So it gets easily countered by fire resist items. So in my opinion, the Genetic is not that F2P friendly, and it's kind of hard to use as an Alchemist early to mid game. Alright? Please take note that all of the information in this video are not just coming from my opinion, it's also coming from the Discord community that we have. So that's it. Thank you everybody for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. If you happen to like the video, please do leave a like, share this with your friends, and click that bell notification button to get notified every time I upload a new video, start a new stream, or a new content. That's it. See you again in the next video. Bye-bye!
Now I found you.